Hi, this is Joyce Polino Crane. I'm the news director at Westford Cat, and I'm here today with Jody Gilson, owner of J. Gilson Greenhouses of Groton. Jody has been in Westford a lot recently, giving presentations at the J.V. Fletcher Library, and she's here today in our Westford Cat studio to tell us a little bit about how to winterize your garden. So Jody, tell us a little bit about the plants you brought here today.
Okay, thanks, Joyce. I decided to bring some of those plants that I get more of the questions about, like what do I do with my rosemary? We are in a zone that is advertised as Zone 5, an agricultural zone, which means, you know, that's the zone when you have your first frost. And
which is usually somewhere in, what, October?
Usually in October, but you know, I think even in Groton, which is very close here to Westford, I am colder. I'm like 4.5 zone. I had a frost already.
Oh, wow.
All the squash plants are gone, and you probably haven't had one yet. But this is the time when everybody seems to want to hurry up and gather, you know, what they have left, and what do you do to make sure that I have a good garden next year? What do I bring in? Rosemary is an example of one of those plants that here in New England you do have to bring in this Mediterranean plant. It's not going to winter, maybe on the Cape, but not here. So I usually suggest to people that remember that it's going to rest for 4 months. But if you wanted to save some of the delicious growth right now, you can take a third of it, you cut a third of it down and leave a couple of leaves so you have more branches in the spring. And then you can take any of that material, as in other things like sages and lavenders, and put them in paper bags, because you're going to want to try to do everything at once, and we don't have that much time.
So you cut the top off and then just put it right into the
Put it in the bag, yes, and I put it in the paper bag because it controls the amount of moisture. It won't rot. Plastic would sort of rot the material, but it will gradually dry it out. And you can just put a label on it, throw it in the closet. When you have time later, after the season, when the snow comes, then you can put your hands in and you can just take all the leaves off the stems and then put the leaves into another container. Could be plastic, could be glass, and you'll have them for 2 years.
So by the time you go back to it, it'll be dried?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
That's
and so you can do lots of things. I have a lot of paper bags in the closet until January.
So what else do you have here?
Well, I also have lavender. People do ask a lot about herbs and when to cut them. And for the winter, this happens to be one. People will say to me all the time that, oh, I lost my lavender again, what did I do? Well, a couple of things. This does not need to be pruned until the spring. So the winter is going to offer more opportunity for this plant to take in water and sun and the snow for the root system as well, and you just let it go. It will actually stay in color and you can use it all winter. But then in the spring, you cut it down again about a third, and then you'll have multiple growth and it will do very well. It's also one of those plants, like many, many herbs, that they don't want to be mulched. A lot of people really want to put salt hay or straw or something on the plants. They really like to have air around their stems. So especially in the herb family, because they really are wild things. They're sort of weeds.
Does it have a scent?
It absolutely has a scent. Yes, I know. I made some lavender bread this morning.
Oh my God!
And how dare
so
I?
aromatic.
And lavender lemonade has always been a real popular drink at the farmers markets. So that's.
I can see why.
And it's a good way to let people know that it's not just an aromatic plant; it's also a culinary, and it's really, really good. Really, really good.
What's this tall one?
This one isn't. The vegetables are also this time of year. As I said, I already lost most of mine, but there are still peppers, even though the days are shorter and the fruit is smaller. Peppers and tomatoes are still hanging on, and I want to let people know that you can still harvest them. Peppers you can still harvest even green and use them green. They will ripen a little bit after you pick them, and then after the plant has been hit by the frost, then you kind of yank it out, put it in the compost. I very often do, however, leave some of the fruit, whether it's tomatoes or peppers, in the compost, because it's amazing how strong the plants are next year when those seeds happen to have wintered.
So you gathered the seeds out of the compost? Because I grew tomato plants this year on my deck, and last year also. I kind of am new to the whole process, and I still have one green tomato hanging on the vine. So what would I do?
The green tomatoes ripen amazingly well in, here we go again, paper bags. You take all of the green tomatoes. If you're not going to make relish and pickles and that sort of thing, you just put the green tomatoes in a paper bag and put it on the counter, and you're not going to believe how delicious they still are as they ripen. They're really, really good.
Oh, that's great to know.
Yeah, and then the rest of the material, yes, I do throw some of the material, even though these are considered annuals, meaning they only will live 1 year and die in the winter. It's amazing how those little seeds in a compost can winter over, and then they produce the strongest, healthiest, most lovely wild things, which is kind of, it makes you feel kind of bad sometimes that I took all this time to plant things on purpose, and here they come up wild. But it's a nice bonus. It's a nice bonus.
It is a nice bonus. And this is basil, did you say?
Well, actually, this
Or
was,
that?
I have a hard time removing anything that was a wild thing, and it must have meant to live there. This is basil that's also in a pepper plant. This is a hot pepper plant, and this one will probably go about the same time. But I keep it in here just to show people that you do need to continue to cut basils, especially after the end of June, after the summer solstice, because all of the plants are going to want to, the annuals that are only going to live 1 year, are in a hurry to put up their flowers, set their seeds, because they know they're going to die. So the more you can cut the basil, and you just cut it above 2 sets of leaves all summer long, and you get 2 more branches every place you cut. And it keeps it going, because it's a Mediterranean herb, but it has to be it is the #1 selling herb I've ever had for 25 years.
I understand. Even I bought basil this year, but I had
That smells,
a bit of
doesn't it smell so
luck.
good?
It's the aroma of my people. I am of Italian descent.
Yes, so am I.
And then there's a
Yes, this I wanted to show
onions?
onions and garlic. I'm always taking garlic I used to buy it wholesale from big suppliers, and now I find that I go to the grocery store and sometimes just see it already growing in the little bulb. As soon as you see a little bit of green, those are called scapes, and then I take them apart, and each clove can go into potting soil, and you will have your own either shallots or garlic or onion plants, and they reproduce
lovely.
from the bottom, and you can be using the tops all season long, which produces larger bulbs below. Which is nice.
Yeah, I think I'll try that next year. So we're just about to wrap up, but can you tell Westford residents, is there anything else you want the Westford residents to know about winterizing their gardens?
Yes, I wanted to mention something about seeds, because seed saving has become something that I've been doing so that I can do all local seeds and then produce plants that I know are going to do well here in this part of New England. And you can do that from your own precious seeds in your garden, whether, for instance, something like celery seed. You just cut the stalks off, just as you did with the rosemary. You cut off the tops of the plants that have seeds. Again, put them in paper bags, because sometimes they're not completely dried yet.
Yes.
And again, dry them out. Do what I forget to do all the time, label it. And this is celery seed, and you can use the celery seed in cooking, and you can also use the seeds themselves for next year's growth.
They're
but
wonderful.
It's nice to be able to use your own seeds, especially if it was a favorite delicious plant. And
Yes.
once you can save your own seeds, you won't believe how fast they germinate and how much better they are.
Okay, and before we go, I just wanted to really quickly show the audience your books, because you told me at the beginning of this that you are a former librarian,
Yes,
which was
yes.
very interesting. So you brought some books
Yes.
that are, just tell us
Well, some of
why
them
they're important to you.
I like to do a lot of regional books for plants and cooking, and I do a lot of both cooking programs as well as plant programs. And I like to do things that are local, like this is the Northern Gardener, this is the New England Herb Gardener, and then
there's
some
one more.
basic question and answer. And this does things by regions, so it also includes the Northeast, which is pretty important because we have a very unusual growing season here in New England.
We certainly do. Well, Jody, thank you so very much for
Welcome.
coming today. And to all of you out in Westford, this is Joyce Polino Crane. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.